Good morning. Someone had asked me to read out my speech that I delivered at for a conference in Markham a couple of weeks ago for OARTY. Here we go. Ane Bojo, Theodore Sartan Indishnakas, Maigan Nadodam, Obajawan Nadonjaba. Greetings, hello. My name is Theodore Surratt. I am from the Wolf Clan, and I am from Batchewana First Nation. I identify as a proud queer Indigenous and Two-Spirit advocate and artist. When I was a child, and up until I was 19, my family participated in a secondary education boarding school program for First Nations youth from northern communities. I met so many youth who were given an opportunity to gain a high school diploma, a chance to be in a bigger community, and to meet new people and friends. Some youth came from the same reserve, while others came from the blended First Nations communities. However, not only were they met with new accomplishments and potential achievements, they were also faced with new challenges. One day, I asked a boarding student, also known as boarders in my community of Rankin Reserve, of what challenges he faced. He looked me in the eye and said, "My people suffer from suicides. It spreads like a disease. One person, then the next, and then the next. Families, friendship, circles, all affected by their living situations, substance abuse, mental health issues, and concurrent disorders are prevalent. The intergenerational trauma for First Nations people and youth are also key factors to consider when assisting with the continued wellness of Indigenous peoples of Canada. Forced relocation of traditional lands onto rural, inaccessible reservations, assimilation, genocide, the 60s scoop, residential schools, and today's scraping away of Indigenous rights continue to disrupt consulting between service providers and leadership between communities. If you claim to specialize in Indigenous programming, the first thing I think of is mistrust, Indian agents, reverse racism, and poor relationships. When you take a child away from their family and their communities, you create trauma, maybe continued trauma, but the United Nations countries in the free world, and so many advocates agree that by taking youth from one culture and force assimilating them into another is genocide. There are service providers who shouldn't be service providers. And if you're claiming to offer Indigenous programming, then that should be more than hiring someone who identifies as Indigenous or whatever your systemic labeling entails. Now, when you think of Indigenous populations and the challenges they face, we can acknowledge and reaffirm the issues that they face, but also the privileges and biases that others in this room may hold towards Aboriginal populations. Now think about the challenges that queer youth have. They are a population who are also marginalized and oppressed, and face their own challenges including suicide, suicidal ideation, substance abuse, depression, homelessness, and poverty. Now think about these kids, and now think about queer Indigenous youth who also face these challenges. Sometimes I prefer to wear dresses, not just because I look good in them and have legs for days, but because sometimes I'd rather have people stare at me for what I wear compared to the color of my skin. The reasoning I became an advocate is because I face racism and homophobia, and today I still experience these social dilemmas. When I was 25, a youth I heard about committed suicide in their First Nation because they were gay. I've contemplated suicide as a youth. This empowered me to go to school for social work and Native specialization, and today I use art and motivational speaking to discuss issues regarding Indigenous and queer relations. Today, I hope that our stories and lived experiences help you become our ally, an ally for all queer youth in Ontario and elsewhere. Please don't consider my portion of this panel to be just the prose of another angry Indian. If that's how you feel, then I question your empathic ability to deliver culturally inept services for queer and Indigenous youth. Chimigwech. Thank you. I also wanted to point it out in that speech because there was a question and answer period that happened after this panel discussion, and I really wanted to hit on the point of the importance of education and awareness. Now, when people ask, like, what can I do to work myself better with Indigenous populations or working with Aboriginal youth, I always tell them to educate themselves, to find those safe spaces, to find those allies within First Nations communities, to have those questions, to have those discussions, so you can become culturally inept and working with this specific population. Thank you very much.